Hello gamers and welcome to a new video, or rather a new series. So you know that I love making guides and I usually end up making like really long guides. So you probably won't find any guide from me being shorter than an hour, but I was like, yeah, well, that's maybe a little bit too long for new players who just want to get quick information. So that's why I decided to start a new series where I try to explain things quickly or just explain things you usually don't find any information on in-game. So the topic for today is CC. What is CC? CC basically means crowd control, and that means that your ability usage is limited or you get displaced in some way. But I can imagine that is a little bit confusing if you don't know what it is. So what are the different types of CC? I'm sure you probably heard about all the different CC effects, but I remember that for me, at least in the beginning, it was really rough to tell what's the difference between some of them, so that's why I want to explain them. When getting stunned, you're forced to stay in place and you are unable to shoot or use any ability over that duration, but your teammates can still protect you, they can heal you, they can shield you, whatever, so you're just forced to stay in place without being able to use any ability, and you are able to get stunned by an Imanara ultimate, for example. When being crippled, you are not able to use your movement ability, and this effect could be applied by Grover's crippling throw, or for example by Janna's void grip when he's playing Power Cosmium. A silence is similar to a cripple, but is a little bit more impactful. So when being silenced, you are crippled, but you're also unable to use any other ability. That also includes ultimate ability. So you can see it's a little bit more impactful, at least a little bit more annoying to play against a silence than a cripple. Polymorph means you are transformed and or your HP pool is changed, such as a Pip ult where you're turned into a chicken and your HP pool is reduced to 1500, or Moji ult where you're transformed into a cookie. When being exiled or banished by Atlas ult, you stay in place, similar to a stun, but you can't get interacted with. So that means the enemy team can't deal any damage to you or apply effects over time, such as cauterize or damage over time. But that also includes that teammates can't heal or shield you either. So as you can see, this is harder to actually make work because you're only taking the enemy out of the game. So you just try to limit the amount of players the enemy team has. When being rooted by Imani's Frostbomb, for example, you're forced to stay in place, but you're still able to shoot and use any other ability besides your movement ability. So as you can see, it's a little bit stronger than a cripple because you can't move and can't use your movement ability, but it's weaker than a silence or a stun because you can still use abilities and still can shoot or attack the enemy. A Knockup or Knockback is the weakest kind of CC because I think it's easy to understand. When being knocked up, you're just knocked up in the air, and when being knocked back, you're just knocked back for a certain amount of units in the game. This ability or this Knockup could be applied by Sardi's Blastback, and the Knockback could be applied by Casey's Disengage. A Fear could be applied by Maldema's or Seven's ult. Those are the only abilities applying a Fear currently in the game, so that means you are forced to walk in a straight line without being able to use any ability or shoot. So it's similar to a stun, but you're still moving, so it's harder for the enemy team to hit you because you're forced to move and not just staying in place. Now some people could think or say, well, it's not that good if you're just walking in a straight line because it's harder to hit them. I mean, yeah, but no, because this leaves some space open for good plays to make sure you push the card in, you capture the objective because you can fear the enemy team off the point or off the card. Besides that, you're also able to obviously fear enemies off the map, so you can see you still get a lot of value out of these abilities or ultimate abilities. Alright, those were the effects of CC. Now let's talk about the ways to counter them. There are two different ways of countering CC. The first one and the easiest way to counter CC is just buy the item Resilience, since Resilience reduces the effectiveness and duration of crowd control. That means that you're not crippled for the full amount of time. But keep in mind that most CC ultimates have a minimum duration you can't undergo. So for example, the Pip Chicken or Pip ultimate will always be 2 seconds. So even if in theory or the mathematics say you would undergo 2 seconds, this is impossible. Pip ultimate will always be 2 seconds. But I think easy to understand is that you still can get CC'd even when having Resilience, since there are CC abilities and ultimates which counter CC but can't get directly countered by Resilience because they are no CC effect over time. Those would be Makor's Rage Anchor or Zin's Spite, for example. let's talk about the second way of countering CC and the way which is impactful against Makore's Rage Anchor or Sin Spite, for example. Let's talk about crowd control immunity. When being immune to crowd control, you won't be affected by CC at all, and even counter Makore's Rage Anchor, so Makore is unable to hook you when you're CC immune, but CC immunity can only get granted through certain abilities or ultimates, which being, for example, Rocker's Hexafire or Inara's Earthen Guard when playing Mother's Grace. So as you can see, it's hard to get CC immunity, and in most cases resilience is enough, but for certain situations, certain abilities, you want to have CC immunity on your team to make sure you can't get hooked, because even if you have full resilience and Makore hooks you, you're still displaced, right? So that's why CC immunity is so strong. Alright, that's it for CC, that's it for crowd control. I hope I explained everything which could be hard to understand for new players regarding crowd control. Let me know what you think about the idea of making shorter guides or just explaining those phrases. Also feel free to let me know or recommend any phrase you want me to explain if you heard about it and didn't find any explanation in game, whatever. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is. And always remember, don't forget, you guys are awesome.